Donald Trump has signed an executive order meant to track misconduct by cops while also providing incentives for departments to involve social workers and other actual experts to deal with mental health issues when someone calls to report someone. Now, this all sounds great, but if you really listen to the details of what Trump has to say, it's clear that what he's proposing is toothless or wouldn't really have too much of an impact. And I'll explain why. First, I want you to hear from Trump himself, who gave a speech in the White House Rose Garden today to explain this executive order. I'm going to go ahead and toss the first video. Let's take a look.
Today is about pursuing common sense and fighting for a cause like we seldom get the chance to fight for. We have to find common ground. But I strongly oppose the radical and dangerous efforts to defend, dismantle, and dissolve our police departments, especially now when we've achieved the lowest recorded crime rates in recent history. Americans know the truth. Without police, there is chaos. Without law, there is anarchy. And without safety, there is catastrophe. Of all murders in Chicago, and 68% of all murders in Baltimore went without arrests last year. Americans want law and order. They demand law and order. They may not say it. They may not be talking about it, but that's what they want. Some of them don't even know that's what they want, but that's what they want. And they understand that when you remove the police, you hurt those who have the least the most.
So he tried to, straddle, do the straddle maneuver where it's like, all right, I'm going to try to maybe appease the protesters a little bit because this is not looking good for my reelection campaign. But at the same time, law and order, cops are awesome, few bad apples. The same arguments that we've heard before recycled for this speech. I love how he started that with seldom get to fight for this. Yeah, we seldom get to fight for it because of people like you. Like the reason why we're not allowed to have robust debate about reforming policing in this country is because people like Trump and all of his Republican cronies, local politicians especially, have been resistant to it. The only reason why this is happening now is because the protesters have forced them to bend to their will. And I love that.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear him mention the low percentage of murders in the United States that get solved and even generate arrests is because the police in this country suck, and they're not good at solving murders. They're good at harassing people on the street and murdering people. They're two different things. Like the cops here are designed to basically harass poor people who are doing small, insignificant thing. I don't know, like drinking a beer on the street or, being too loud or whatever. They're not out there actually solving murders. They don't do that. That's not what they're designed to do, and that's why they suck at it. Like they have one of the lowest rates out of any developed country in terms of the percentage of murders solved. So yeah, I mean these reforms also obviously they sound good on paper or whatever, and it's sort of. It shows it speaks to the breadth and the widespread nature of the protest that even Trump feels the need to wink at them or to put some sort of thing on the table to appease them in some way. So it shows that the sustained kind of pressure is having an effect, even in the worst possible elements of our politics. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath and think that the police issue is going to be solved after this executive order.
Oh, definitely. And I'll go into more of those details in just a second. But you touched on something so important because I think this applies to anything that Americans want to accomplish in this country. Because when you look at polling on anything, any progressive issue, even Medicare for all, even after all the negative propaganda was out there in regard to Medicare for all, you still have a majority of Americans who support it. And I bring up that example because if you have this much pressure and it's persistent pressure out on the streets, politicians start listening. Because donors are definitely more powerful than the average voter, but donors are not more powerful when you think about collectivist action, right? Getting people out there on the streets, demanding change, and not letting up until that change is actually happening. And that's why I'm so grateful for these protests. And, people who try to deflect and mention, oh, well, then there was violence or there was looting in the beginning. I'm not interested in having that debate because it is purposely meant, it's disingenuous and purposely meant to distract from the important message here and to delegitimize a very real problem that we've had in this country for a long time. So let me give you some more details about what Trump wants to do. In this next video, he talks a little bit about some of the specifics, including issues with chokeholds. Let's take a look.
As part of this new credentialing process, chokeholds will be banned, except if an officer's life is at risk. And I will say we've dealt with all of the various departments, and everybody said, it's time. We have to do it.
So it's time, Nando. We have to do it. And look, to be fair, Democrats, congressional Democrats also proposed a ban to chokeholds. The only reason why, yes, there should be a ban on chokeholds, but a ban on chokeholds doesn't solve the problem. As we know, the NYPD had a regulation against chokeholds, and Eric Garner was murdered on the streets by a cop who put him in a chokehold. So it's more than that. We need to address the systemic issues as opposed to dealing with all the symptoms of it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we can try to reform these police departments all we want. At the end of the day, if you don't kind of address the inequities that exist within the society, if we don't sort of diminish the inequalities that exist in the society, as long as there's police and there's inequality, the police are going to be violent toward the poor. The police are there to defend a social order that exists. So as long as you don't change that social order, the police will be violent toward the poor, and that's just the reality. So we can talk about reforming the police departments, and we should, and they're definitely way overfunded in comparison to other social services, and the other social services are much better at addressing all the social ills that exist and that lead to crime eventually. Even though it's obviously much more expensive, but it's just a much better way to do it. It creates a better, healthier society. But if we don't talk about that, we can do as much reform as we want on the police, the body cameras, the ban on chokeholds, anti-racism training, HR training videos or whatever. None of that's going to have an actual meaningful effect. It's all going to be sort of on the margins. So until we address the inequities in the society, the police are going to enforce those inequities.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. And I think it also ties into what you mentioned earlier about the violent crimes that go unsolved, because what cops are basically doing, what their jobs have been minimized to, is regressive tax collectors, right? They focus on the traffic violations and citations and harassing homeless people, rather than focusing their resources and their energy on, let's say, I don't know, investigating and testing all the rape kits that they've accumulated in various locations throughout the country. Like in California, where Gavin Newsom recently had to literally pass a law to force local police departments to test rape kits. So when people say but the cops are keeping us safe, the way policing is done right now does not actually keep us safe. And we need to look at where the priorities are and what we can do to change the system entirely. And you're right, inequality has a lot to do with it as well.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.